Good morning, fellas. Jeff inspired me this morning as he was talking about getting his video equipment up and running. I was thinking about Rob Feltz and his I say this with endearment, his Okie style little vids. So I figured, send you a little coffee with Paul. So this is my Boston College coffee mug that my daughter Sarah, who's actually in El Salvador now, doing a service trip with the Jesuits, and they don't play around. No devices, so we actually haven't heard from her, and the emergency contact hasn't contacted us. So I'm assuming God's keeping her safe as she goes to El Salvador to do some service work for the Jesuits. But I like to think of that as my $400,000 coffee mug, because that's the cost of attendance for Boston College, room, board, tuition, travel, etc. At least the MSRP on it. Thankfully, she takes after her mother and has a lot of scholarships to bring that price down. I actually think we pay less for Boston College than our other daughter, who's at Pitt, and she's at the honors college and has a presidential scholarship at Pitt. But anyway, thank God for endowments, right? Yesterday, man, wow, I was done at the end. It was like 6, 7 at night at work, and I'm just like, I'm done. Like, the only phrase that was in my mind is, I'm just done. Another board member resigned. I had like the board member who's helping out with the strat plan light, super bright guy, graduate certificates in business from Harvard and MIT, had founder, CEO of his own company in the pharmaceutical space, pharmacist by training. But like him and another Johnson and Johnson former guy, they're like, I'm talking about strat plan light, keep it simple. I almost basically want a battle plan just to make it through the financial crisis, because we're running out of credit in about 4 months, and they're arguing over KPIs for months 12 to 18 on a strategic plan light, and whether they should do the McKinsey consulting method, the Deloitte, or the Boston consulting. And I'm like, guys, let's use the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. That didn't go over real well, but the biggest mistake he made is saying I was the owner of the project, and that whatever had to be, whatever we came up with would have to meet the needs that I requested, since it was my ask, since I was bold enough to ask the board to actually do a strategic plan, or i.e. do board things, which they want to be on the board, but they just don't want to be board things. So the one example I say respectfully, but it means I'm probably only being arrogant and not full asshole mode, reminding them. I said, yeah, like, because they're like, well, we're volunteers. You can't expect that much of a volunteer. I said, well, here's the deal. If you volunteer to be on a volunteer fire department, and you take the volunteer fireman orientation, and you take the volunteer fireman training, you can't show up at your first fire and say, what? You expect me to go into that burning building? I'm a volunteer. Like you volunteer, but it doesn't mean, you don't have to do what you signed up to do. So, basically the vice president of leadership and governance, there was two of them, because they needed two of them for the 10-person board with an agency with 12 people. The one recently got a job, and he had been unemployed for 14 months, so now he's grinding away the first 90 days, drinking from the fire hose. I get that. I really liked him though, because he's a former Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine. And he would hold me accountable, but he would ask like things like, how's the staff's morale? Like, what's your first impression? I remember that. And I tried to weasel out of it, because I'm like, well, I've only been here 2 days. And he's like, yeah, that's why they call it a first impression. What's your first impression? He's also on the board of the Travis Manion Foundation. So I think he sees a higher functioning nonprofit and how things can be. But anyway, the other VP of leadership and governance backed out of working on the strat plan light. I think I just wasn't letting him create a fancy document that was going to be put on the shelf, like our previous strategic plan or the board development plan that they created last year, that looks good and has all the graphics, but it's basically meaningless. Anyway, sorry about riffing enough about work. I'm trying to just complain less, so whenever I complain, I've tried to follow it up with gratitude, something from essentialism. So I'm grateful that I can drain off with you guys, and that you'll hold me accountable and say, well, Paul, what action are you going to take? And the action I'm going to take is to work on my diplomacy, to slightly increase my accountability for the board. But I may be dipping into getting myself fired. So I'm actually just going to bring in a consultant, which everyone tells me I need to do. And maybe it's even like a quote unquote free consultant from our agency affiliation agreement with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, and say, listen, I'm just not getting out of the board what the board says they're going to do, or politely, the board's out of integrity, and it's not my job to manage the board. It's my job to oversee the operations of the agency. That's what they hired me for. And me and the board president, and the new board president were off to a good start. He was formerly the finance committee director, and he's a former hunter. So, I've agreed to not micro govern, and he's agreed to not micromanage. But he's new. It's a time of transition, and we're still in crisis. So anyway, that's what the action I'm going to take, so that I have to complain or train off to you guys less. Excited about Growler Prowlers. Fun name. Really nailed it, Adam. I love the double entendre, but you know me, I'm just full of double entendres. And yes, I am sitting here in my boxers, but I'll spare you the picture of that, although I think I just got a visual in your head. Actually jumped on the Friday call this morning. It's been a while, and I have to do my Brocker calls twice monthly. So there's 2 hours of my month I waste and never get back. Sorry. I gotta be careful. I'm recording this, but, it actually was a good and meaningful, call, cause we were discussing essentialism and some of the tricks and tips. Ryan had us write down 5. Maybe we should do it at the call this Sunday. Now that I think about it, write down 5 things that you spend your most time on. And then, like what you manage, what you measure, like I get it. I was kind of like, all right. And I pulled out my remarkable tablet and I played along, because I am a somewhat decent follower. I just bitch and complain too much. But it was eye opening, because I use a higher order administrative skill of looking for what's not there. And I'm like, shit, I call myself a Christian. Where's prayer and scripture? Why isn't that top 5? I call myself a family man. I have family time, but in reality, family time means the sporting adventure of family life and shuttling around the doctor's appointment and school's functions. And tomorrow we're taking our son to open house down in Philly to a restaurant graduate, technical program. And then in the evening, we have our granddaughter's birthday party. We rented the church hall. So, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. tomorrow will be family time. But where's joy? Where's beauty? Philadelphia, great metro area for museums. And they have great museums, and some of them are even free. And I know, because 30 years ago, before Kids and Families, I used to go to them. It's probably the last time I've been to a museum in Philadelphia, other than my friend's 3rd wedding he held at the Rodin Museum, which actually is my favorite museum in Philadelphia, because man thinking. But anyway, yeah. So it was like, where's joy? Where's my 2-hour block of joy for a Sunday afternoon? And of course, is what of this list can go off, so that you can bring in more meaningful lists. And for me, it was one of the down-regulating things I've gotten into is TV in the evening. And, I admit it on the call. I spoke up, I raised my hand, and I said, listen, yeah, here's all these things that aren't on my list that I'd like to see on my list. And the first thing that jumps off my list is TV and reading. Drop TV. Because when I read, I don't get in past an hour in a book before that my head's back and I'm snoring and the book's on my chest. But when I'm watching TV and it's, that first episode ends and it runs, they know how to do it. They know how to give you that dopamine drip. It's right onto the second episode or the 3rd episode before I know it. I'm like, shit, it's 11:15 or it's 11:30 and I'm supposed to be in bed at, winding down at 10 and then asleep by 11. So anyway, longer video than I intended. Sorry about that. Not really. But I appreciate you guys. I'm curious about things in your daily life. Chaz says it well, kind of familiarizing each other with our daily routine. What are the things? I guess I'll end this with a question, a little bit of playful challenge, not obligatory. What things are that you would like to have in your life in 2026 more of, that you feel prohibited from, or you don't have the optionality for, because of other things that are eating up your time? That's it, fellas. Thank you. I'm out. Bye.